What would the Seattle Seahawks do to clear cap space for the 2025 season if it were up to me? What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. We made it to the end of the week. It is Friday. Still no offensive coordinator as of me recording this video. Could be happening very soon, though. I think there's some anticipation that it'll happen today because tomorrow's the weekend, and usually stuff like this doesn't go down on the weekend. Although I'm sure there are exceptions, I think it's far more likely we get something done before the close of business hours. So that's exciting. Maybe I'll have videos to make about that later in the day. But while we're waiting, I'm going to go ahead and kind of put a bow on the videos that I made over the past week, where I was breaking down the different options the Seattle Seahawks had to create cap space for the 2025 season. Now that I presented the options, I'm going to go through what I would personally do, how I would manage the offseason if I were in charge. Obviously, I'm not, but this is how I would handle my business if I were in John Schneider's chair. And I think that this is kind of the culmination of all the stuff we've done over the last few days, putting all this information together. But now we actually have to put it into practice in some way. So, got this spreadsheet on screen here. I've cut most of it off because I don't want you guys to be able to see ahead yet. We'll go through one row at a time. Current cap space, according to Spotrac, and Spotrac's generally the gold standard for this stuff, so I went with their number. Over the Cap's number is slightly different, but very similar. Negative $23.5 million as of right now. They are in the red by about $23.5 million. So that is what we're working through right now. That does not include practice squad, which we're going to have to pay a practice squad. That does not include the rookie draft pool. The rookie pool for the draft picks, I mean, or the pool that you have to pay your undrafted free agents from. That's going to add, we need to see exactly what picks we have, but that's going to add well over 10 million to it, I believe. Probably somewhere in the realm of 12 to 13 million. And it also doesn't account for the fact that, generally speaking, sites like Spotrac only take the top 51 roster spots. And of course, there are 53. So the actual number, I've said this before, is at least 35 million. And at this point, I would say it's probably a little bit more. But regardless, we're going to go ahead and take this as a starting point. We know that those expenditures are coming down the line. Let's start with this. So first, we got to go through our guys that we either cut or release. I know that there's a slight difference in nomenclature between cutting and releasing, but for our purposes, it doesn't matter too much. So here is what I would do in that area. I would start by cutting or releasing. I can't remember which one's which. I think it's releasing for a veteran player like this, but I would start by releasing Tyler Lockett and saving $17 million. I know that it hurts. I know that people aren't going to enjoy this. But I need that $17 million a lot more than I need Tyler Lockett, especially if we're going to go for it in the 2025 season. And let me be very clear about something. This path that I'm laying out, this roadmap for clearing cap space for 2025, is assuming the Seahawks are going for it. If they're not going for it, then I would definitely have a very different road. And maybe I'll detail that road out in a future video. But this is, we're going for it. And if we're going for it, we need that $17 million a lot more than we need Tyler Lockett when JSN is just coming off his big breakout season. And you've also got DK Metcalf still. So there's unfortunately not much of a decision to make here. I know Lockett said he still wants to play, but I think that in the interest of trying to be as good as possible, you have to turn the page. Then I would release Draymond Jones of the last year of his deal, and I would do a post-June 1st to squeeze out a little bit of extra money. It would be an extra, it's actually fairly significant, the post-June 1st savings. It's, I think, like $4 or $5 million more dollars. I don't want to go look it up right this second, but it is more. It does kick some dead money into 2026, but I don't really care that much about kicking dead money into 2026. I'm trying to go for it in 2025. So I'm saving $16.5 million. Draymond Jones is not worth anywhere near $16.5 million the way he's played for us the last couple of years. It is what it is. So I'm taking the post-June 1st pain just a little bit. It's okay. Honestly, post-June 1st cuts are like a credit card with a 0% interest rate. So I'm willing to take those on all day. Next guy I'm releasing is Noah Fant. Last year of his deal, due $13.5 million approximately. You save most of that if you release him. The savings against the cap would be $8.9 million. You owe him, I think, like $4.5. So completely reasonable cut. Not much to say there. He just hasn't been that good. He's a decent enough player, but he's not worth the money we gave him. He was probably worth the money we paid him against the cap last year, but there's no way he's going to be worth it this year. So we save almost $9 million. And then I'm releasing Rayshon Jenkins. No room for him on this team at this point. We have safeties that we like clearly ahead of him in Julian Love and Kobe Bryant. Maybe we need a third safety, but it doesn't need to be Rayshon Jenkins. $5.3 million is worth a lot more to me than Rayshon Jenkins at this point. You could probably get like 6 or 7 safeties in the late rounds of the draft or UDFA that'll give you similar production to Rayshon Jenkins for a much, much cheaper price. You could fit, like I said, 6 or 7 of them in the savings alone on Rayshon's cut. And then I'm releasing Roy Robertson Harris. This one's an absolute no-brainer because there's 0 dead money on the deal. So you're saving 6.6. I don't even know if Roy Robertson Harris is worth the veteran minimum. He's certainly not worth 6.6 million. If you really want him back, you can cut him and then bring him back on the veteran minimum. But either way, he's got to get going. So 6.6 million savings. That's an easy slam dunk decision. And then we're releasing George Fant. Again, in my estimation, not much of a decision. He couldn't stay healthy at all last year. He played a grand total of like 30 snaps the whole year, I think. Something like that. And there's no reason to believe things are going to get better. If anything, things are probably going to get worse. He's getting old. His play is deteriorating. So there's not much of a call to make here. And that is the final release that I would make in terms of cap clearing. There may be other cuts, but they're going to be about clearing roster spots, not clearing cap space. So after this string of cuts, after you release, well, okay, let's call it release because I think that's technically right. 6 guys here. You are already at about $34.6 million in cap space. 34.6. And we're not done, but we're already more than there. We are there to the point where we could just say, okay, we're done. We could do that if we wanted to, just with these decisions. And look, I'm not for it, but if you want to bring back Tyler Lockett on a much cheaper deal and only save 14 instead of 17 because you give him like 1 year, $3 million, you could do that. You can see that the cap space we have left would allow that. It definitely starts to get a little bit thinner at that point. You could even maybe try to bring back Noah Fant at a much cheaper deal. Maybe you could work something out there, and you'd still be able to afford it. Now, those are not things that I want to do, but you can see that we're already at a point where we could just go through the rest of the offseason, take care of our business, and be good with it with just those 6 moves. But we're not done yet. So we are going to be making one trade in this path. Again, this is my ideal happy path. We are going to be trading Riq Woolen. I don't think he fits. I don't think that he's motivated the way that a player like Riq Woolen should be motivated to be great. I don't think that McDonald is going to humor his inability to tackle and support against the run the way other coaches might be willing to do. And overall, I'm just ready to move on before the big money kicks in because Riq Woolen has put up big numbers so far in his career. He's got significant bonuses in the 4th year of his rookie deal. So you're actually saving $5 million if you trade him or release him. Now, I don't want to release him. I think he's good enough to not be released, but you can trade him, get some kind of a medium asset for him, and still save the exact same amount of money. So, yeah, Riq Woolen, I know this is going to hurt some people, but I'm over it. I'm over hoping that he's going to figure out how to harness his potential. And I'm trying to move him while he still has value, because if he has another year like he did last year, where he put it on tape at various points that he doesn't seem like he's really into this football thing, he's not going to have value. So do it now. All right. So that gets you to about 39.6 million in cap space. So we're pushing up close to 40. So we're doing well. Now, restructuring, I wouldn't restructure anybody yet. I would consider restructuring Big Cat if the opportunity to spend that money came around, but we don't need to do that until the opportunity hits. So we can hold off on Big Cat, let his contract sit, make a decision later, but I'm not making that decision now. So no restructures, extensions, and we're only going to do extensions that create cap space, because there are a handful of cap saving extensions the Seahawks can make. We're going to get into other extensions in future videos, but this is just the extensions that would save cap space. In some cases, cap space that we really need to create. So, number one, I am extending Geno Smith. And this is where funny math comes into play here, because we're just guesstimating based off whatever we think the next contract will be. But in my view, an extension of Geno Smith, even one that gives him $40 million a year or more, would easily be able to save about $6 million against the cap. So I'm banking that extension. I'm saving the $6 million, and I'm going from there. I know it's not a huge savings. You could definitely make the savings bigger if you wanted to. I don't think Schneider's going to be willing to do that. He wants to maintain freedom and flexibility to move off of Geno after maybe 2 years. But it would create that cap space that you need to really have some ammo to play with in the offseason. So I'm extending Geno Smith, saving about $6 million. And then I am extending DK Metcalf. And here's the thing to understand before I get into too much detail here. We're going for it. If we're going for it, which I would never make some of these moves if I didn't think we were going for it, right? If I thought we were going to punt on 2025 a little bit, then I would do things very differently. I would not do the post-June 1st on Draymond Jones. I would probably release quite a few other players as well, guys who I don't think are going to be worth all that much in a couple of years that might have one really good year left in them. Guys like Uchenna Nwosu, I would probably release if I thought we were going to just kind of punt on 2025. There are probably some guys that are like injury prone on this team that I don't want to bother with anymore who I would release. So if we're going for it, which is, again, what this path lays out, I want to be very clear about that. I think you are obligated to keep DK Metcalf, and you can't keep him on his current deal. It's kind of the same with Geno. Geno is at least a little bit more practical, but it's still bad business. You don't want to have one of your best players playing on the last year of his deal unless there's an extreme circumstance going on. So, personally, and I've talked about this before, I'm not very happy with DK Metcalf at the moment. I'm not very high on him. I'm frustrated with where his career is right now, and I would definitely look to trade him and trade guys like Geno as well, and maybe a couple other guys if we're taking a step back in 2025. But it is going to be really hard to trade DK Metcalf and not take a step back. So to me, if you're extending Geno, you may as well extend Metcalf. There's no guarantee you're going to be able to even come close to replacing Metcalf this offseason. Sorry. Like, I don't want to go for it in a year where my only good receiver is JSN. I just don't. Especially in this class where almost all the good receivers are slot guys. And we already have a slot guy. So I think you're stuck with Metcalf, so I'm extending him. And I think that extension, whatever it may be, will save at least $7 million. That's a conservative estimate in my book, but I went with $7 million. And then I'm also extending Michael Dixon. I'm doing that no matter what, because Dixon's one of the best punters in the league, and we're going to be happy having him for a very long time. Now, the extension won't save that much money, but it will save some. I estimated about $500,000. You could get it to $1 million pretty easily if you wanted to, but we don't have to. It's not that big of a deal either way. And that gets you to your final number of $53 million in cap space. Now, again, you're going to earmark some of that for the draft, some of that for the practice squad, but that is more than enough money to do what you need to do in this offseason and get free agents in here and spend the bucks that you need to try to make the Seattle Seahawks a contender. All right. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think down below. Let me know what you would do. Maybe I'll do another video later that lays out a little bit more of a take a step back approach to the 2025 season just to present the scenario, even though I don't think there's any way we do it. And we'll do more videos like this down the line. As I present more scenarios, I might add on to this scenario with what I would do after it. Because once you clear this kind of cap space, you're talking about probably a little less than 40 million in effective cap space for 2025. You need to do something with it. You can't just not spend any money in free agency and go, oh, we're going to roll over cap space. If you're going to roll over cap space and not spend money in free agency, then you shouldn't have extended Geno. You shouldn't have extended Metcalf. You probably shouldn't still have Nwosu. You shouldn't have post-June 1st Draymond. So we'll talk through all that down the line. But for now, let me know what you think about this. This, to me, is the path to walk if you're trying to win a Super Bowl this year. All right, go Hawks.